okay, he can be killed, and he was killed. This is not our standard of justice in Islam. This is not our standard of justice. This is injustice. Because everyone, no matter how good they are or how bad they have hukuk. They have rights. This is something that Islam came to establish for all human beings, be they a Muslim or not a Muslim. And I know this might be unpopular to say to the broader public, but this is the truth. And we as Muslims have to stand for our principles, whether people like those principles or not, because we believe in a higher power or a higher authority, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who we will all be judged by at the end of the day. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna Allah huwa al-hakam wa ilayhi al-hukm. In Hadith Sahih. Surely Allah, He is the ultimate judge, and the ultimate judgment belongs to Him. The ultimate judgment belongs to Him. Now, we have a individual responsibility to be just in our dealings, and we have a community responsibility, brothers and sisters in Islam, to stand up for justice, to do the right thing. This is very important. As a matter of fact, justice is so important in Islam, in Deen al-Islam, that Allah Azza wa Jal gives a description in the Quran of what is most close to having a taqwa for Allah Azza wa Jal. And a taqwa is a branch of al-Iman. It's a branch of our faith. And there are many actions that we have that are connected to having a taqwa, to having proper consciousness and respect and fear for Allah Azza wa Jal. Anything that Allah has commanded us to do, if we are conscious of it and we are doing it, this is part of our taqwa. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said, عِدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. عِدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. He, Azza wa Jal, said, be just, establish justice, and this is what is most close to having taqwa, being just. And we give this justice for the people who dislike us, and we give the justice to the people that we love. And Allah addresses this in the Quran. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ عَلَى الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَأَقْرَبِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says this in the Quran. O those of you who believe, be upright, establishers for justice, witnesses for God, even if it's against yourselves and your two parents and your close loved ones. This is what the Quran says. And a hadith Hasan is narrated in Kitab al-Mabsut, narrated by the hadith scholar Muhammad al-Shaybani. He even has a hadith that's attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam that says, عَدْلٌ سَاءَةٍ خَيْرٌ مِنْ عِبَادَةِ السَّنَةِ. Showing justice in 1 hour is better than a year of spiritless worship. Having this justice in 1 hour. Now, brothers and sisters in Islam, I'm going to conclude, but I'm going to give you some suggestions about how to be involved in social justice and being involved in justice issues in America. Both for the Muslim people, but the people who aren't Muslim. And I'm going to start with showing justice and trying to bring about justice for the broader society, because that's our mandate. for two reasons. One, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I mentioned before in the Quran, He said, "Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas." And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Khayrun nas man ya'rifu an-nas." The best of the people is he who benefits the people. This is the best of the people. The best of the people is he who benefits the people. So we have to do something to benefit the people. And if people are under dhulm, under injustice, then we as Muslims have to do something to try to alleviate the oppression against the people. This is the first thing. The second thing is, any type of dhulm that comes into the society and affects the people who aren't Muslim, it will eventually spread to the Muslims. Because we don't live in a cocoon. You all know what a cocoon is, right? We don't live in a cave by ourselves. If something is affecting the people in society who aren't Muslim, we aren't going to be immunized from it. We can't just think that we're going to stay in the masjid and stay in our homes, and if there's dhulm spreading through society, then it won't affect us just because it's affecting those Latino people in Southwest Detroit who are Catholics, or those black people over on the east side of Detroit, or wherever. And we think, oh, we're immune to it because we're Muslim or we're Arab and we're in Dearborn, etc. It doesn't work that way. So we have to do something to address the social justice issues and those things that affect the people who aren't Muslim. The third thing is, brothers and sisters, doing this is da'wah. Is da'wah. It was the adalah of Habibullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that helped attract those people who were Muslimin in Mecca, that helped attract them to Islam. Bilal al-Habashi never had a one-on-one with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to be called towards Islam. He heard about the message and he saw his justice. And this is what helped bring Sayyidul Mu'adhineen Bilal al-Habashi radiyallahu anhu to help attract him towards Islam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith hasan, جُبِلَتِ الْقُلُوبُ عَلَى حُبٍ مِّنْ أَحْسَنَ إِلَيْهَا. Hearts naturally turn to love whoever does good for them. If we as Muslims see an injustice happening to people who aren't Muslim and we help alleviate that for them, don't you think they would love and appreciate the Muslims for helping alleviate that injustice or that hardship for them? Don't you think so, brothers and sisters? Of course they would appreciate it. If someone came to you and you were in a bind or a bad situation and helped do something good for you to help you out of a difficulty or a calamity, you would have some natural affection or help at least get a different perception of that person. So we have to do this. Michigan is the poorest state in the United States of America. You know, poverty is relative. The poverty of Michigan isn't like the poverty that's going on in Somalia right now, or in a refugee camp in Palestine. Not poverty like that. We don't have as much poverty as like that type of poverty, but nonetheless we have poverty. We have homeless people. It's estimated that 23% of children in the state of Michigan suffer from malnutrition. Did you know that? You know what that comes out to? That's like 1 out of every 4 children, meaning people who are 17 and below in the state of Michigan, are not eating a proper diet and are suffering from malnutrition. So we Muslims, we should have a concern for these people who aren't Muslim. And when you become older to be involved in the political process, you should be against any types of laws or rules that would help send children, innocent children, into poverty. Because those children are born with a Muslim nature just like you. Their parents just happened to be Jewish or Christian and made them Jewish or Christian. This is what Habibullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said. كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ meaning فِطْرَةُ الْإِسْلَام. Every single child was born a Muslim. And it was their parents who made them a Jew or Christian or Majus or a Zoroastrian, as the hadith says, and the hadith is sahih. So we should have a concern for those children and those people who are going through difficulties. And if we do something for the people will love Muslims in Islam. I'm telling you. Let me tell you something about American history before I go to my last point. Who is the most powerful minority in America right now? The most richest and powerful minority? Do you know? Sisters, does anyone know? If you're in high school or college age, you should know. Brothers, any brothers know? Except for you, Raheem. Who is the most powerful minority in America? No, the most powerful minority, like group of minorities.
White minorities.
Who?
Muslim.
No.
White minorities.
Jews. Sister said, Alhamdulillah. Jewish Americans are the most powerful minority in the United States of America. They make up only about 2% of the population. They are the most wealthy of Americans. There are Jewish people. There are executives in every media outlet. They chair major departments of study in universities all across America. Even Islamic studies departments, like at Harvard University. I had a friend who did undergrad and master's program, and a Jewish American was over the Islamic studies in Near Eastern studies. Let me tell you, it was not always like that for Jews in the United States of America. You know, 50 or 60 years ago in America, there used to be signs that used to say, "No Jews and dogs allowed" in certain areas of America, not just in the South, even in the North. Jewish people used to live in the west side of Detroit and part of the east side of Detroit and live around African Americans because they couldn't live in Oakland County because the white Christians would not sell homes to Jews. This isn't even not that long ago. I'm talking about in the 1960s even. Jews couldn't live out there. Jews had their synagogues and temples burned down. How did this group, as a matter of fact, going back further, when Hitler was in Eastern Europe talking about killing Jews, a group of Jews took a ship to America to try to flee Hitler, and America turned the ship back. And many of those people went into concentration camps. You need to know American history. They got turned back around. This is American history. How this group of people that were despised so much, that were marginalized so much, how did they get to be the most powerful minority in America? We need to ask ourselves this question. Besides them becoming educated in certain fields of study, being involved in the political process, in media, getting involved in academia, they all didn't want their kids to be doctors and engineers like the Muslims. But they got involved in the civil rights movement of black Americans. And when they got involved in the civil rights movement of black Americans, they helped leverage that and use that social capital to lift themselves up. That's why when you read the history or see footage about Martin Luther King Jr. marching in the March on Washington or voter registration drives of black people in the 60s, there were always some Jews walking with Dr. King. There were Jews who were killed during the civil rights movement, who were locked in jail. There's something called the Freedom Riders. You should Google it. Where Jews from Detroit even went down south to Mississippi. Some of them were locked up, some were killed. They helped establish their social capital by fighting for the rights of other people. And when you stand up and fight for other people, inshallah, will come to your aid. But if you're only worried about your issue, if you're only worried about you, then people don't like selfish people. We have a dua about this. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-bakhl. We seek refuge from Allah from being stingy, from being selfish, right? If you're selfish and only concerned about the Muslim issue and not for the issues of helping the other people, then no one will stand up, no one will come to help the Muslim. So if you want people to help Muslims, if you want people to stand up and talk against Islamophobia and racism against Arab, then we have to do something and when other people suffer injustice. This is a secret that's really apparent, actually. It really is. In a hadith Hasan, actually, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Al-arwah junudun mujannada. Spirits are like troops in the army. And he said that those that are alike, he will bring them together, and those that don't like each other, they will be separated. So if we stand up for justice, and I keep saying this, for other people, and advocate for other people, they will have a spiritual connection. It will be like an influence, like ruhaniyah, where they will be attracted towards the Muslimin in Islam. I'm confident of this. The second thing is, we have to always be cognizant of being just and establishing justice amongst ourselves. We have to stand up for justice for Muslims all throughout the world, because we have to have balance. We can't have all of our minds and thoughts here and not have our minds and our thoughts about Muslims in the Ummah al-Islamiyah. Because Allah Azza wa Jal ordained for us. He made us to be an ummah. In the hadihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa rabbukum fa'budun. He ordained and made this ummah for us, this spiritual brotherhood for the believing men and the believing women. So we have to have some concerns. And we also have to work for and stop injustices amongst ourselves. Here, even if it's just speaking out against the injustices that take place in the Muslim world, or speaking out against injustice or discrimination against ourselves as Muslims. Because even in the time of as-Sahaba, radiallahu anhum ajma'in, there were injustices that a Sahabi would do against another Sahabi. And Rasulullah ﷺ had to do moral adjustment with the injustices that the Sahaba did amongst themselves, because the purification process of al-Jahiliyyah took time. People just had to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and all of their jahil thoughts were evaporated with that kalima. It didn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. One of those injustices that had to be addressed was racism amongst Muslims, even at the time of Sahaba. I will give you a couple of stories. I'll give you 3 stories and I'll stop. I'll answer any questions. All 3 of these stories have to relate to Sayyidul Mu'adhineen Bilal al-Habashi, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. The first one is, I will start with them in the sequence in which they happened according to the Hayat al-Sahaba. The first one is, there was a tribe of the Arabs called Bani Bukair. Bani Bukair. And they had one of their girls who they wanted to get married. So they said, oh, Messenger of God, we have one of our girls and we want, her to get married. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أين أنتم عن بلال? Where are you at regarding Bilal? So they didn't like the suggestion from the messenger of God, so they turned away and they left. They came back a second time, the men from Bani Bukair. Do you have someone to marry, one of our girls? قال حبيب الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أين أنتم عن بلال? They frowned up and they left. And this is the nasiha of the best of creation. And they turned around and left. He said, where are you at regarding Bilal? They left again. He didn't like him, obviously, because one, he used to be a slave. He didn't have much wealth. And second, he was black, and they were from an Arab tribe. The third time, they came and asked again, "O Messenger of God, do you have someone to marry for one of our girls?" قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أين أنتم عن بلال؟ أين أنتم عن رجل من أهل الجنة? Where are you at regarding Bilal? Where are you at regarding a man from the people of paradise? Then on that third time, then they allowed their girl to marry Bilal after that third time. This is how he got married. The second one of these stories is there was a dispute between Bilal and the honorable companion Abu Dhar, radiallahu anhu. This is narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, this second story. So they got into an argument, so Abu Dhar went back to the attitude of al-Jahiliyyah, because he was an Arab and Bilal was not. So he said to Bilal, he called him, he said, Ya ibn Sauda, O son of a black woman. This was like a derogatory term, like trying to put him down. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was informed of this and told Abu Dhar that he did the speech of al-Jahiliyyah. Abu Dhar felt so bad that he had did this, that he went to Bilal and he told Bilal, he said that he went and he would lay down on the ground so that Bilal could take his foot. That he could take his foot and stand on his head and face, on his face and his neck, because he had offended Bilal so much. He was doing this as like, okay, you can do this to me to make up, to atone for me saying, Ya ibn Sauda. Bilal said, Afwan. He pardoned him and then he hugged Abu Dhar. They made up. The third of these stories is in Fath Mecca, during Shahr Ramadan. Bilal was one of the people that went with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam into Baytullah to clean out the idols of Al-Kaaba. And afterwards, Bilal was then commanded by Rasulullah sallallahu wa sallam to do something that no other companion had the honor of doing. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is, sister, brother, youth? He's the only companion to have done this. I'll let an elder do it, yes. He called the adhan, but on top of the Kaaba. There were two people who the Prophet ﷺ had appointed for his call to prayers, Bilal and Abdullah ibn Maktoum, radiallahu anhu. As he went up to call the adhan, two things. First, Bilal had a speech impediment. If you know anything about the history, Bilal couldn't say sheen properly. He would say sheen seen. So he would say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So there was a complaint by a companion. Yeah, this guy could be Bilal. He's not in the Arab and he's like calling the adhan, and he can't even call the adhan, right? And he pronounces the sheen like seen. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that surely the seen with Bilal is a sheen with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allahu Akbar. Then when he was calling the adhan, some of the people who were aristocrats of the Arab didn't like seeing this person who used to serve them on top of Baytullah calling the adhan. So one person said, I thank Allah, I praise and thank Allah that my father didn't live to see this day. The second person, who later accepted Islam, Suhail ibn Amr, said, look how Allah and His Messenger honor this ghurab. Ghurab al-aswad, ghurab. Ghurab. You know, what does ghurab mean? You know what ghurab means? It's a crow. Look at this black, look at this black crow up there. Look at him. And then the other person who was the wisest of the three was Abu Sufyan, who kept quiet. And then Allah Azza wa Jal revealed a verse in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. The most honorable of you with God are those of you who have the most power. Why do I say that? I gave these three long stories for a reason. Because we as Muslims, especially you who are born and raised here, you have a duty and responsibility to break up some of the tribalism that we have amongst us as Muslims. And alhamdulillah, this masjid is better than many around America. In many places, in some cities, the sheikh has to be from the majority ethnic group of the people at the masjid. And then even some masajid are named after the ethnic group. You get to have the Iraqi Islamic Center and the Albanian Islamic Center and the Bosnian Islamic Center. And then other people of other ethnicities don't even feel welcomed, much less letting their daughter marry someone from another ethnicity. Sometimes the daughter or son can't even marry someone who's not from the same village. It has nothing to do with Islam. Someone from Nablus, they have to let their daughter marry someone else from Nablus. That's it. I don't mean to pick on Palestine. It could be any country. I'm just using this as an example. It can be Tunis or El Jazeera. It can be somewhere else, right? I'm just using this as or Yemen or African American. And this we have to challenge this when we see this, because this has the tribal mentality has nothing to do with Islam. Allah gave us our ethnicities. We should respect them because He created us with different skin colors and different languages, gave us different cultures. We shouldn't abandon all of those all the way, but at the same time, we can't do that to treat other Muslims with a different type of standard or treat them less than because their skin is lighter, their skin is darker, or their hair is curlier, or their hair is straighter. This is